Hi, I'm Scott Malvern, British GT race winner at Donington Park for Team Parker Racing, and you're listening to the GT Report podcast.
Hello and welcome to the GT Report podcast. This is episode 3. My name is Biegus and with me today is Joe Hudson. How you doing, Joe?
Yeah, I'm not too bad, Jurek. How are you?
I'm not too bad, mate. I'm not too bad at all. We're also truly blessed today because not only is it just me and Joe, we also have our boss, our editor-in-chief, GT Report head honcho, Miguel Bosch with us. How you doing, Miguel?
I'm great, thank you. That's a very nice introduction.
Well, you know, I'm hoping for the pay rise. So there we go. So anyway, we've got a pretty packed show ahead of us today, actually, because motorsport, it's back. It's back with a big bang, really. So much, in fact, that we can't talk about everything. So today we're just going to concentrate on British GT because, well, we've had a couple of races. And there's quite a bit to talk about, and then everything else we'll do another podcast about everything else that's gone on later on. But at the moment, British GT. So 2 weeks ago, Oulton Park kicked off the season as it normally does. It was the usual weekend with just 2 1-hour races, and it was actually quite a good weekend, really. I suppose the big story was James Baldwin, the world's fastest gamer. I'm not sure if we're contractually obliged to say that. But yeah, the world's fastest gamer. He won the race. And don't forget Michael O'Brien as well, his partner. I think he may have contributed slightly as well. And also the McLarens, which were, well, pretty hot and pretty fast. What do you think, Joe?
Yeah, I think those McLarens really surprised everyone, I think. At the start of the season, maybe it was... People weren't writing off the McLarens, but I think they thought they'll be in the mix with the Lamborghinis, with the Mercedes. But to see them, I mean, starting from qualifying so far ahead of the rest of the field and sort of every one of them topping the timings, I think came as quite a shock to a lot of people. It
was in GT4 as well. I think they were at the top of the timings there as well, weren't they? It was basically everywhere. If you wanted to go fast at Oulton Park, you had to be in a McLaren.
Yeah, it certainly seemed that way, didn't it? I think they just seemed to be suited to that circuit, I think. The sort of, 90-degree corners in the sort of first and third sectors, and then they seem to really be able to stretch away on that long run down island to Shell Oils.
They were all Silver Cup, so it did make sense that they would be fast, at least at the first part of the race.
Yeah.
True, yeah. We should also point out, though, it wasn't entirely a McLaren fest. I mean, Conor O'Brien won in GT4. He was in an Aston Martin. We've got an interview coming up. We're coming in Conor O'Brien later on, so stick around for that one. But yeah, it was actually a pretty good race. Race 2 wasn't... I mean, it started really well. We had the pros out first. They did what the pros always do. They just had a great time. But it only lasted about 25 minutes because... Well, we had not a weird accident, but it was an accident that ended up with 3 cars stranded in 3 different locations around the circuit, and it was just a nightmare to clear up. Yeah. So effectively, race 2 only lasted 25 minutes.
Yeah, I think that was one of those crashes that I think the organisers really dreaded to happen, I think, because you had 3 cars that all had wheel or suspension damage, so they couldn't be just dragged. I think if you look at where Connor and Nick certainly ended up at Cascades. There's no barriers to hide the cars behind either, because the other side of the barrier is the other side of the track. So there was sort of no way you could leave them. I think in an ideal world they would have just dragged at least one of them behind the barriers and left it. But with 3 cars that needed full lifts and only 2 vehicles that could do a full lift, it was always going to be quite tough to be able to get that dealt with. But not an ideal
Monaco style cranes, don't they?
Yeah, I think cranes are definitely the way forward, I think.
Yeah, I don't know if British GT could afford that, but yeah, that would have sorted it. No problem at all.
Yeah, it was a shame, really, because, as you say, Phil Keane did what Phil Keane does, which is saw a bit of clear space and thought, right, I'm not letting anyone get in front of me here, including his own teammate, Sandy Mitchell, who had a absolutely cracking start in the second of the Barwell Lamborghinis.
I seem to recall Marcus Clutton did quite well as well in the GMH Lamborghini. He was right up at the sharp end as well for a good while of the race.
Yeah, I think it was a great start for Marcus. I think obviously he's an instructor at Oulton Park as well, so he knows the track really well. And I think that Lamborghini just really suits him, to be honest. I think he's quick to be able to get the most speed out of it.
And of course, GT4, we saw Mia Fluid win the race again with co-driver Ewan Hankey also putting in a stint. And Mia, well, lots of controversy, well, not controversy, but certainly a bit of confusion about whether she was the second or third woman to win in British GT. So, third woman in GT4. No, third woman overall, second woman in GT4.
Yes, obviously, Jamie Chadwick was the first in 2015, alongside Ross Gunn in the Beechdean AMR Aston Martin GT4. Then 2018, we had Flick here and Johnny Adam absolutely dominating for Optimum. And then, now Mia Fluid for Balf in the McLaren 570S.
So overall, good weekend, I think. I enjoyed it. I was there, and it was some good racing. And then we had a weekend off, and then we were off to Donington Park, and awful weather.
Have you just
You've never been to the Nürburgring, I guess.
Yeah, it was that kind of weather where it was just kind of drizzly and horrible, and you either wore a coat and got very sweaty, or you didn't wear a coat and you just got wet. So you get wet either way. It didn't matter really. It wasn't great, but I mean Saturday was nice. Saturday wasn't too bad, but race day was just you couldn't even see the planes taking off from East Midlands Airport, which normally they're only about 200 feet up, so it's that's pretty low cloud.
Is that why you went there to go airplane spotting?
It is one of the bonuses of going to Donington Park.
It gives you that nice artistic angle, doesn't it? Try and get the planes and the cars.
It does, yeah, absolutely. So it's always nice to get a Ryanair flight coming in from Malaga. So yeah.
But I think this weather might be a sign of things to come with this schedule. I think
could be, yes, yeah.
Certainly going into Britain, certainly October. By the time Silverstone comes around in November, I think we could be up for a very wet, very cold final round. I think.
I think that's a given, isn't it? And apparently there was flooding at Snetterton last weekend as well. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting run into the end of the season. So with Donington, we had 2 race format, which was slightly different. 2-hour endurance race, if you can call it an endurance race, and a 1-hour sprint.
Not really an endurance race, was it?
Not really, no. But I mean,
a normal stint is about 1 hour anyway. They still have the same 2 drivers in the cars, so maybe for the M's or the pros, it was just keeping either increasing the gaps or decreasing them. But other than that, maybe a bit more pressure because of that. But otherwise, it was just another sprint race, I would say.
Yeah, but it's a nice time for watching cars going around in circles.
An extra hour, why not?
Yeah, extra hour, exactly. It was an hour more than we had at Oulton Park, and
keeps you off the street.
Well, indeed, yeah.
And I suppose the deeper thing with it as well is if you add in the 3-hour race we're going to have at Donington in mid-September, it actually gets us back up to the same number of physical racing hours that we had last year, despite having one whole weekend less. So I think SRO probably has to be applauded for being able to just keep that much time back on the schedule, considering the sort of year we've had, really.
One of the talking points from the weekend was McLaren's, according to Angus Fender, had an extra 85 kilos of ballast compared to 2019. And it had an effect, I think, because it certainly slowed them down from Oulton Park. They weren't as dominant this weekend as perhaps they were.
Might also have had something to do with that they went out testing there earlier this year with the 2019 balance of performance, and then they came there, and if you have another 85 kilos extra added, that's quite a lot.
Yeah,
have fun setting up that car with that added weight.
Yeah, indeed. Well, certainly Angus wasn't happy about it, but rules are rules, bop's bop, so there you go.
But by the same token, you say that in qualifying they still managed to edge it I would say, obviously, you got James Baldwin, that man again, proving that sim racing experience can transfer over into the real world. He got pole for the race 1. Then Joe Osborne absolutely monstered it to get pole for race 2, beating Scott Malvern, who we're going to have an interview with later, just by 31 hundredths of a second in his part season Balf McLaren. So I think in qualifying, I think there's probably not as dominant as they were at Oulton, but I think they still had good pace. But yeah, certainly in the races, I think they did fade away from them a bit.
I think it did what the Bop was supposed to do, and it kind of closed everything down and made the racing closer, I think. So I'm not complaining about it.
Definitely, yeah, it certainly closed things up. So
the other new debut as well, Andrea Caldarelli joined WPI Motorsports with Michael Ogo. Obviously, Michael's moving around various different drivers this year. This time around, it was Andrea Caldarelli's chance to have a go, and this was his first race at Donington since 2007, when he appeared in the Formula Renault Euro Cup 2 Litre. Didn't do so well in that race, but won this one. And won it, I would say, with fair bit of style. I mean, he had to hunt down Mr. Chiala down in the final stages of the race, get past him and disappeared, showing him a clean pair of heels.
Did we expect anything else from him?
Well, I know.
Yeah, I think this just shows that I think Andrea is just, I would say, definitely Lamborghini's best driver. I would say probably one of the best GT drivers in the world this year. I mean, the fact that he gets to a circuit he's not been to for 13 years, he's joined a team that he's never raced with before, and he can do what he's did just proves that he's just Mr. Dependable, isn't he?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I hope we see him some more in the championship because, he is a quality driver, and definitely worth your money. If Mr. Caldarelli is on the entry list, get across there and watch him disappear into the distance. And GT4 as well. That was Conor O'Brien again. Patrick Kibble, TF Sport. They got another victory.
That's quite straightforward, actually. They just jumped their teammates at the pit stop because they didn't have the success penalty, because they had an accident at Oulton Park in the second race, and they just jumped them, took the lead, and that was it really. Last night I actually had a call with Conor O'Brien to talk about his season so far. How do you feel with the start of the season so far, with winning 2 races out of 4 races, and especially with the most recent win at Donington Park?
Yeah, it's been amazing. Great start to the championship. Getting my first ever win at Oulton, my first ever pole position was a dream come true. So yeah, really nice, really great way to start the season. It's just we need to keep momentum going for the rest of the year now.
What was it like to win at Donington Park in those tough conditions?
To be honest, it was quite good fun. I like the wet conditions, and especially when it goes from sort of like wet to drying, that's the conditions I love. And when I jumped into the car, it was starting to dry up a little bit, and then it had a bit more rain, and it was really nice. I love the changeable conditions, but it was really good fun. I loved my stint, and Patrick done an amazing job to come bring the car into P2. We had no success penalty, so I knew once I went out, it was just a case of finding a good rhythm and settle into a nice steady flow. Nothing silly, just get the job done and, bring it home to the finish then.
When you won the race at Donington Park, the first race, your teammates, they finished in second place. Does that make it extra fun to celebrate a victory like that?
Yeah, of course. It was lovely to get the 2 TF cars on the podium. It shows the hard work, all of the team, and not just their, like the engineers and the mechanics and the whole team, but the work that the other drivers are putting in. And it was really nice to see that. It was nice to get a 1-2. We're leading the team's championship. The driver championships were both 1 and 2. The 97 car is ahead of us, the car of Dan Bourne and Jamie Caroline, so we're a point and a half behind them going into Brands. So, we're all very fired up, and it's been a really good start to the season so far. So, need to continue the momentum into Brands and for the rest of the year. Hopefully, we can get another decent result at Brands and sort of pull a bit of a lead over everyone. That'll be a dream come true, really.
The second race at Donington and Oulton Park, they were not as successful in terms of results for you. Is that is that a cause for concern yet?
Yeah, one of them was not so good with the DNF, and the other at Donington we knew with a success penalty after the race win it was going to be a bit tough, and it was very changeable conditions. A couple of the cars went onto slicks and we stayed on wets, and like the 3 or 4 cars around us stayed on wets. So, I knew at the start of the race, right, when we'll get cracked on and try and make a few moves and try and, get back out in front and sort of head down and pull away. But fortunately, it didn't really happen. He had a good few battles with Jordan Collard and the McLaren, HHC, and my teammate as well, Dan Bourne. So we had a good few battles. I really enjoyed that race, actually. It was nice to battle and come through, put some moves on, have a bit of a race. But of course, we were on wets, and after 5 laps in, they were really getting hot, and you could feel the tyre getting spongy. And when you turned in, it just didn't want to do what the tyre was meant to do. So I thought we'll kind of like try and keep them a bit cool, like move to the wet bits on the straights. But when you're doing that in a race, it's very difficult to stay in position and keep the tyres cool. So I was kind of hoping that if the 2 in front of me made a mistake, I could sort of pick up the pieces and drive through. And, again, for me, it was like, we've got a success penalty, try and get the car in as best place it can for Patrick and do nothing silly, get good points on the board. But yeah, it was okay. It wasn't a best result, but still some good championship points.
You and your teammate Patrick, you are both very young. He's even younger than you are. He's 17.
Yeah.
So
he's 17, 18 in October.
Yeah, in terms of learning from each other and the kind of lack of experience at this level that you both have, what do you learn from each other still, despite of all that?
Yeah, so we're both quite lucky because it's our second year in the championship, second year in the car. So we're both quite lucky that way. But Patrick's a very fast peddler. He can maximise a lot out of the car, and he's really great at that. And that is one of his really good skills. And yeah, so he's learning. I'm learning a lot of his outright pace and how to really push the car to get that. And for myself, I'm sort of trying to just I'm making sure when we go into the weekend that the car is just 100% set up. Because I think it's fine. You can have a really fast car for qualifying and quite edgy, say, but for the race, and you're doing an hour on them tyres, and you start the race with heavy car, quite heavy on fuel, and then the tyre drops off, and at the end you have low fuel but old tyres. So it's always you're trying to chase something that isn't there, if that makes sense. So the biggest thing is for us, for myself, I always try and work on the setup, find a good quality setup, and then if we have to, we can tweak a little bit for the race, just so it doesn't wear the tyre. But we're really lucky that the Aston Martin is great on its tyres. It doesn't really take a lot out of them compared to some of the other cars. We're really, really low degradation on tyres.
Your teammates on the 97 car, they are a bit older. They have some more experience in different kind of cars, faster cars. Do you get any help from them?
Yeah, like Dan Vaughan's, of course, come out of Porsches, he was quick in that, and, Jamie, he's won Ginetta Juniors, F4, done some F3 races, he's a very quick lad, to be fair to him. And we do learn, of course, we all share each other's data, so we all, come in, we'll look at the data individually, and then we'll sit down and have a bit of a meeting, and say if one of the cars is, we're both struggling with, say, like understeer, we'll do a setup change on both cars. Because we don't have very long in British, we only have 2 1-hour practices and then 10 minutes in qualifying. You don't have long to actually tweak or set the cars up any different. So what we do is we go, one car goes either way, and then if it's better, we'll trust that and we go to that setup for the other car then.
Right, so that spreads the chances of getting it right.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes, to be fair, we both go and do it in setups, and it's like, well, hang on, we really like our setup and they really like ours, or theirs. So we kind of either stick with what we've both got on the cars. But yeah, it really helps having 2 cars within the team for sure.
Mm-hmm. How is that different from racing with Optimum last year?
To be honest, there's not much of a difference between Optimum and TF. They're both great 2 teams, very professional. Of course, TF. They've run Astons for longer. They've got a little bit more knowledge with the Aston brand. They, of course, with having the car in WEC, they have some really great staff within their team, and I really will give that to them. You know, my engineer on our car, Grant, is the WEC engineer. So we've really got like the top of the tree, if that makes sense, with the people we've got on our car, which really help. And there's stuff that the TF guys think of that I would never even think of, and just little bits to do to help you and just to ease, like, of course, into Oulton. I'd never done a pole position, roll and start, and they showed me loads of videos, helped me out, taught me through it a million times just to calm my nerves down. And, you know, they really are great bunch of lads, and they are really good.
So for you, it's actually more of an advantage that TF Sport, that they pulled out the GT3s.
Yeah. It's if they had the GT3s, we wouldn't have Grant, I don't think, is the engineer. So yeah, it is quite good that they did. If that makes, without being rude to the old GT3 boys, it's nice that they did pull out, because then we've got the best people on our cars now.
Yeah, that's a smart move. So,
yeah.
The GT4 field, as compared to last year, it's now predominantly Silver Cup. Does that change how you approach the races now?
No, not really. Of course, last year there was a few more Pro-Ams and there was a good few more cars last year. But yeah, we don't really change the approach. Of course, your silver drivers, they're all really competitive still. You know, there is like one or two drivers that, of course, you have a bit of an edge over, with a little bit more experience, say, or if someone it's their first year. But to be honest, it's still a very competitive grid this year.
Right, it's very competitive, but it's also small. So what is the value in still racing GT4 for you?
I really like the car, and of course for my second year in GT4 I got offered a GT3 drive, and I did explore the option, but I didn't think I was quite there yet. You know, I didn't want to walk before I could run, and I can still see this year already has taught me some great things about racing, and without that stepping stone in GT4 I wouldn't be able to progress up the ladder for next year. It's taught me some really vital things: how to lead a race, how to pull away in the race, how to pole, get everything all hooked together. And what I don't want to do is say move to GT3 and get forgotten, because it's such a competitive field. You're up against some really quick guys. You've got Phil Keane, who's been in the championship for a long time, a lot of factory drivers, and as much as I would love to have gone with the option, I just think I'd have been a bit lost and it wouldn't have been noticed, and I wouldn't want to do that.
Small steps.
Yeah, definitely. I think small steps, and after this year we have another great year, touch wood, and if we can achieve our end goal, I definitely think for next year it'll be nice to step up then and see where we are.
Mm-hmm. And then we have to hope that the economy picks up and that the pandemic dies down a bit. And then,
touch wood, it does. It's British GT have done a fantastic job, to be fair to them. I'm really happy and really proud of them, because it was looking like at some point none of us were going to get to race this year, and they've put a lot of hard work in themselves in Motorsport UK and FIA. They've all worked so hard, and really without them, we wouldn't be able to race. So a big thank you to all them key people.
And the fans, they are allowed to go to the races, and a lot of racing series, they do not allow fans in yet. So I think that's a massive plus from British GT.
Yeah, it is a lot quieter about the fans. It is a bit more the atmosphere we had last year. There isn't so much of it, but we're still quite lucky that the fans can come and watch from the grandstands and the grass areas and see. So it's still nice, and you still get a bit of an atmosphere with it, but it's just like last year, it was so nice having the grid walks and people come and look at the cars and get on the grid. It's quite a special feeling, really.
So you're an Aston Martin Academy driver. Can you explain why did they sign you up?
So it's really great, and it's something I'm really proud of. And again, a big thank you to Aston Martin Racing for giving me an opportunity again this year. I was on the programme again last year, and again, it really helped me my first year in GTs, having that support and, what they give you, the experience and everything, having them really knowledgeable people around you just really helped me. And it's really nice to be back again this year. It's slightly changed for this year, of course, with the COVID, but it's really nice still. So how it works is last year, there was, I think it was 23 of us, and we'd have like a mentor on the weekends. We'd go to the sim with media coaching. And then at the end of it, they pick throughout the year. They perform, see how everyone's performing, and speak to the coaches and etc. And then at the end of the year, they pick one winner, and the winner gets to drive within Aston. They get to go to the wet test, and they get like a junior factory role for 1 year. And then after that, then they can choose to renew it or however they do then. So Tom Canning won it last year, and he seems to be doing some really great things. Okay, he's not racing at the moment, but at the media day in the GT3 car, he was very quick, and he done a great job last year. So hopefully it'd be nice to see Tom back out in something shortly. And again, he can showcase how the Aston Academy works and how he's benefiting from it now.
Yeah, in the long term, so you can, it's simply, to put it simply, it's kind of a roadmap to become a works driver.
Yeah, if you look at Ross Gunn, he was the previous winner. It was quite a few years ago. He won, I think it was 2017, 16. And, again, now he's fully factory driver. He had a year a bit quiet, similar to maybe what Tom's having this year, a bit of a quiet year. And then he was flat out then, and now he's in the wet car, in the AM car, doing really good things as well. So it's nice to see for myself, being at the bottom of the ladder if it is, and then seeing the people that have gone from the bottom and worked their way up and put the hard work in, and you can see them at the top now. It's good to see that and have a bit of inspiration by them people to keep working hard and get them better results and do everything you can to win that end prize.
And the first step is winning the GT4 championship. You've won 2 races, you're second in the championship, so looking good, isn't it?
Yeah. At the moment, fingers crossed, touch wood, it's all the pieces of the pie are coming together, and it's really nice. It will be a lovely end of the year if we can win the championship, box that off, and hopefully see where we are with the academy stuff as well. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to all of it, and I love the Aston brand, and I'd like to stay with them for as long as I can. If you look at the people they have, like Darren Turner, Johnny Adam, they've been there for quite some time, and they do a fantastic job, and they really are building the image of the Aston brand, and that would be something I'd love to do and help them out with, and try and be there not just for a little short term. Like, I'd like to be there for a long time, and keep racing and doing well.
Next up is Brands Hatch. How do you feel going into that race?
Yes, so Brands next weekend. Yeah, really excited. I love Brands GP circuit. It is such a cool circuit, old F1 circuit. It's one of them tracks I just really love. So I'm really looking forward to it. We've got no success penalty for the pits. So again, we can hopefully get a good qualifying and then come out and then head down and push to the finish, and hopefully, get another great result and try and get past the 97 car in the championship and, take the lead of it. Will be really nice. And yeah, that's definitely something we'd love to do. And hopefully we can do it next weekend. We've put a lot of hard work in, and yeah, it'd be nice now to get another win or get another really good result and showcase what we've done.
Thank you, Connor, for your time and talking with us. It was really a pleasure.
No, perfect. Well, thank you for your time, and thank you for inviting me. It was really nice to speak to you and give a bit of an insight into what's going on within my year in racing, really.
So race 2 at Donington, that was just the 1 hour sprint. It was quite an interesting one. We had Scott Malvern at the front with Joe Osborne just behind him, and there was a choice to be made as to what tyres to go out on, and it seemed like it was a wet race. A lot of cars went out on wet tyres, but certainly Scott chose to go out on dry tyres, and it worked out quite well for him, didn't it, really?
Yeah, it did that. It was quite a gamble to take, really. I suppose him and Joe Osborne, they both started on slicks in the front row, and I think, yeah, it took quite a brave decision to do that, because I think looking at the conditions, it really was 50-50 as to what the best strategy was going to be. They did lose a couple of places on the sort of first couple of laps while they were getting heat into the tyres. They were sort of getting mugged by the the wet weather runners, especially Jack Mitchell in the 2Cs, McLaren. But then when they got heat back into the tyres again, you saw the slick runners come back to the front, really, which I suppose probably was going to happen. But I think you have to give Scott and Joe big credit for being able to hold on those first 2 laps and maybe not get too disheartened that they were seeing themselves slip down the order again.
Or indeed sticking it into the gravel. So
yeah, that is the risk at Donington, especially going down the craners. You've got gravity against you and quite a sharp right-hander at the end of that hill as well.
Indeed, yeah. So no, it was a good effort, and like I say, they did go backwards, but as soon as the tyres warmed up, they were back up, and I think Scott then led right way through. Well, Scott and Nick led right way through to the end of the race after that, didn't they?
They did, yeah. As soon as they got back to the front again, they didn't let it go at all. And I think, when Scott handed over to Nick just, he knew he didn't have to push too hard. He just had to keep driving to a good steady pace. And I think that's what Nick's become really good at over the last couple of years, is just knowing exactly how to drive when he needs to. He knows when to push it when he needs to push it. He knows when to keep steady when that's what it calls for. So I think he's becoming a really great arm to complement Scott, who we all know is a really great pro.
Yeah, isn't it great that a guy like Scott Malvern, who was like the hero of Formula Ford, but never really had the money to move his career forward, to at least to this kind of level, that once he found Nick Jones to team up with, and look at where they are now. They started with the Ginetta and GT4, then the Porsche, then the Mercedes-AMG GT4, this year then the Bentley, and now they are already winning at least one race, and who knows how many more.
Yeah, I think they're definitely going to be a bit of a force to be reckoned with, I think, going forward. And it's good for Team Parker Racing as well. It was their first victory in 2 or 3 years as well.
Yeah, 3 years. It was the last win was with Rick Parfitt and Seb Morris at Brands Hatch in 2017. So yeah, it's been a couple of years of struggle for the team. They've taken class wins in both classes. Obviously, Scott and Nick took a GT4 overall win at Silverstone last year. But yeah, GT3 wins have become a bit hard to come by. I think it's probably a testament to the work they've been putting in on that Bentley, to be honest. I think the Bentley Oulton Park maybe wasn't great, but I think through the whole Donington weekend, obviously Scott qualifying second, like a fraction behind Joe. Free practice, they seem to have good pace as well, and then in the races, yeah, I think that Bentley's becoming a lot more sorted, especially if you compare the sort of the troubled first couple of years it's had compared to how successful the old model was straight away, really. We're delighted to be joined by Scott Balfour now, who gave up some time earlier in the week to talk us through that whole weekend at Donington. Thanks for joining us, Scott. I just wanted to start off by asking how you're feeling after your win at Donington at the weekend.
Yeah, big relief. Obviously, completely unexpected, overwhelmed a little bit, but yeah, unexpected mostly. Obviously, this being the first season with the Bentley in GT3, didn't expect to be winning races in year one as a Pro-Am. So yeah, to get one second weekend is pretty amazing. So really happy with that.
Yeah, I was going to say, because obviously the weather conditions were really hit and miss throughout the entire weekend. So what was it that made you so confident at the start of the race that you wanted to start it on slicks when maybe the weather suggested that it was sort of marginal?
I wouldn't say I was overly confident that it wasn't going to rain. Really, the gamble was a little bit more calculated than just sort of putting our finger up, into the wind, because obviously we all saw the result in race one when we ran wets, and it wasn't great. Our pace was pretty poor, and to be able to fix that between races, we only had a couple of hours between each race, so to be able to fix that in that sort of short space of time without any sort of real testing is going to be tricky. So we had a lot to lose by going on wets potentially, and potentially a lot to gain by taking the gamble. So it just made sense. And for me, if it rained, it rained. We roll the dice, and it just paid off this time. I didn't feel like it was going to pay off on the exploration lap, I must admit. On the lap to the grid, it was a little bit touch and go.
Yeah, because I was going to say those first few laps, obviously the wet runners got past initially. What were your thoughts when they started coming through? Were you ever doubting the decision, or?
No, I felt like after once I got around the first lap, and I knew that it was dry enough to get round. That was my main concern, because even on the grid, the lap to the grid, and then obviously on the green flag lap, the formation lap, we're not going fast enough to really know. And obviously on the exploration lap, the tyres are pretty cold. Well, even though they come out the heater, they by the time you get to the end of the pit lane, they're cold-ish. They're brand new, so they're still shiny. So to me, it all felt wet going around on the exploration lap. Then the green flag lap actually felt okay, and I was confident after the first lap, that I could get round. When the wet guys came past, I wasn't overly concerned, because I was able to see where they were strong and where we were strong. So they were only really better than us at the chicane and at the hairpin, like the first hairpin.
Right.
But then the rest of the lap, we were stronger. So I knew that wouldn't last forever, So I was just really just trying to stay in front of all the other slick runners, but I wasn't aware that I thought both of the Lamborghinis went on slicks.
Right.
So when the Sandy Mitchell car came past, I thought he was on slicks, and I was like, "How is he doing this?" I'm hanging on for dear life, and he's driving on wet bits of the track that I couldn't go near. And then I got on the radio and asked the question, and he was like, "No, they're on wets. Okay, you're fine." So I was pushing like crazy, trying to stay with someone who was on wets at the time. So that kind of helped me, actually, because without that, I wouldn't have I don't think I would have pushed so hard. So that was good in a way.
And I was going to say, obviously, you were working hard to keep the slick runners behind you. One of those was Joe Osborne in the Bath McLaren. How much of a challenge was it to keep the cars on the similar strategy behind?
You can't really see a lot out the back of the GT3 car. So you can only really see the car that's directly behind you. So as far as I was aware, there could have been a train of cars there. I didn't know there was just one. But the dry line was so narrow, I knew as long as I just stay on it, realistically, is he going to take the risk to go on the wet bit to try and get past me and potentially overshoot the corner? There would always be it'd be very, very difficult for him to get past without me counteracting it straight away. So in that respect, it was okay. The tricky part was just trying to stay on the line. When it's such a narrow line, it was half a car width for most of the stint. So it was tricky in that respect. Try not to miss braking points, try not to run a bit too much speed so you end up just getting onto the wet in the middle of an when you're trying to roll some minimum. That was the tricky part, really. And just trying to be aware of where the McLaren's stronger than us, stronger than the Bentley. I know we were strong in Sector 2, so I made sure I was always trying to build a gap through Sector 1 and Sector 2, and we're weak in Sector 3, so I had to make sure I had that buffer. I don't know if you saw a couple of times with the GT4 traffic.
Yes, yeah.
I ended up losing out in the middle sector, and Joe was then on me at the last sector. I had to defend, which not ideal, but it just gave me that breathing space.
Talking about breathing space, and that Nick had quite a large gap to second in his stint at the end, but there's a few cars trying to unlap themselves. I mean, certainly Sam DeHaan and Angus Fender. How did you or the team sort of go about talking him through that? Because I suppose you want to keep the pace strong, but you don't want to sort of risk anything with lap traffic, really.
Yeah, so we didn't really tell him too much about, we didn't try and manage him too much. We just let him go at the pace he was comfortable with. And if there was someone catching him, we just informed him as to whether it was for position or not. Obviously every time it wasn't. So that wasn't an issue. We kept him informed of the gap, which kept building. So every time the gap went up, obviously his confidence was kept growing. We just kept him informed about going up on traction control as it started to rain more. Just bring the traction up, bring the ABS up, keep notching it up so that he could keep pushing at the level he wants to push at, rather than having a big moment. We were trying to preempt the moment rather than react to it.
And I suppose from a driver coach point of view, how delighted are you that Nick's got his first GT3 victory as well in what was quite tricky conditions, really?
Yeah, no, you know what? It's I think that's what's made the biggest sort of buzz for me more than anything. I was obviously really pleased to get the win, and get a victory in GT3. But I'm so pleased for Nick and for the team. Nick's come such a long way since I've been with him. And even since we've been in British GT, his first GT4 race ever. He got lapped in. I think he got lapped in about 20 minutes, something like that. So to go from that in 2016 to now 2020, and we're winning a GT3 race outright, that's huge progress. So, yeah, really pleased for him. Great confidence boost of him as well, for someone who's just taken the big step up from GT4 to GT3. And I'm really pleased for the team as well. They've had this car, they've had the Bentley, they've stuck with the Bentley and persevered. And it's not, I would say at the moment, it's not the most well-suited car to the UK circuits.
Right.
But Parker have they've persevered. I'm just happy to reward them with that. All that effort and years of trying. Especially with the new generation car, to give them a victory so early on in the series is I'm really pleased to do it.
Yeah, I was going to say, because obviously it's Team Parker's first overall GT3 win in 3 years. So does that? I suppose that will give the whole team a confidence boost for the rest of the year, knowing that we've got this, got it sort of, I don't know, the monkey off your back, as it were, and now we can sort of push ahead, knowing that the pace is definitely there.
Yeah, I think there was obviously a lot of question marks, and you can see the sort of favoured cars on the grid. There's a lot of McLarens, there's a lot of Mercedes, and there's a lot of Lamborghinis. So, people haven't arrived at those marks by accident. They've chosen those cars for a reason for the UK series. With this car, with the new generation of Bentley, obviously they were very successful with the old generation Bentley with the Gen 1. Since having the Gen 2 car, they've obviously had a bit of a tough time. So yeah, it's going to be a big boost for them, to know that they've got, we've been working very hard since we've started testing with me and Nick in the car. Team Parker have been working exceptionally hard, and Bentley as well, to be fair, have been really pushing to develop the car more. Obviously they've expanded into a customer racing program now, with the Academy car and more customer cars around Europe. They've got a renewed effort. They've got a new focus. Rather than completely focused on what would be good for a pro car, they've got to think about what's good for AMs and gentleman drivers. What's going to make them guys fast, and how we're going to win domestic races as well as the big ones in Blanc. Well, I was going to say Blancpain then, but it's not Blancpain anymore. It's AWS or GT World Challenge. That's it. GT World Challenge. Yeah. So it's been great to see. Obviously, the guys at the start of the year won Bathurst. That's obviously a fantastic event to win for Bentley. But I know they want to win more domestic stuff. Customer. They want customer teams to be able to do the job too. So that's really what we've been working very hard at over the last few months.
That leads me on to my next question. How do you feel about racing in GT3 now that we're 4 races into the season? Yeah,
I mean, obviously, I've wanted to race at the highest level in GT racing for many, many years. So to get the opportunity is obviously fantastic, and I obviously can't thank Nick enough for giving us this opportunity. He's the one who puts all the work in, and at the end of the day, it's what he does that gets us the result. I have to do. I do my bit, but that's the bit I'm supposed to do, So as the pro, that's your, that's your job to get, to put that performance in to give him the best chance. But obviously I'm so happy to be racing in GT3. I wanted to race against some of these big guys, big names, and see where I stack up, because, I obviously raced a lot in junior Formula on my own. And since then, I've never, a lot of those guys have moved on to, pretty big things. And I've never really had the chance to sort of stack up against, what people consider to be the world class drivers. So, obviously ecstatic to get the opportunity to race in this championship. I love racing in British GT. Super competitive. Some great drivers, obviously stacked out with some factory drivers as well, which is cool. So yeah, just really pleased to sort of get the opportunity to race against those guys and see how I get on.
And I sort of wanted to go back to Donington, and I suppose you say obviously how competitive it is. Obviously you got second for the sprint race by, is it 31 hundredths of a second you were behind Paul. Was that strong pace, I mean, you called qualifying and even in free practice, was that strong pace maybe a sign that something good was possible in the races?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of a little bit sceptical when practice goes well, because you always feel like everyone else is sandbagging a little bit, you know. Everyone talks about BOP and things like this, so you never really know, until qualifying comes. So we saw at Oulton Park, McLarens came out of nowhere at Oulton Park. They were nowhere in both FPs. They were pretty low down, and then all of a sudden in qualifying they lock out the top 5. So it's kind of I'm a little bit sceptical sometimes of what happens in practice. But yeah, I had a good feeling in the car. So I was confident we'd moved in a good direction. And obviously we've got the reference times from last year, and we can see the BOP from last year as well. So we know that BOP hasn't changed from last year. So we get a good indication of what pole should be. And that's kind of what I was just aiming at in qualifying, really. I think pole last year was like a 26.4 or a 26.5. I think 26.5 maybe, something like that. And that was what I was aiming at, basically. I didn't know that I'd qualified second until I basically saw the flag and told Benno engineer that was it. I've got nothing else to give. And he said, we're P2, and I couldn't believe it. So yeah, pretty happy really, because the car felt good. So there was no reason to think that we shouldn't be competitive, given the facts. Oulton Park was slightly different because obviously the car felt pretty good there, but we knew we were a long way from where we needed to be. But this weekend, the car felt good. We knew we were close to where it needed to be pace-wise. So yeah, no major surprise. I was a little bit surprised, but not overly. I wasn't thinking people were going to just find like a couple of seconds, So
Talk about qualifying. How does it feel knowing that you get out your P2, but you're only 31 hundredths behind? Is that a sort of? Do you think, if only I'd been like a mile an hour faster through one corner?
No, I knew where I'd lost it as well. That was the problem. When you're that close, you know where it was. And at Oulton, I was so happy with my qualifying lap because I knew I left nothing. It was like I couldn't have done any better than that. But at Donington, I knew I could have done better, and it was killing me. So I should have done. I should have been on pole. So I was annoyed at that. But then everyone could say that. Joe could have said, yeah, I could have gone half a second faster probably. So yeah, whatever.
And I wanted to ask about the weekend format as well, because obviously this is quite the first time it's ever been an endurance and a sprint on the same day. Did that need any sort of, I suppose, mental adjustment from you between the races to think, right, this is the endurance done, now it's the sprint, or was it sort of a similar approach to both?
No, I mean, we approached both races, the endurance. I mean, realistically, the 2-hour race is still a sprint in effect. So we don't really approach them any differently. We always approach every race the same, the same way we do everything. We just try and maximise what we can control. So making sure that we're prepared for the start, making sure that we maximise the pit stop in case there's a safety car, things like this, obviously things like weather and things like that. So, all the stuff we can control, then that's what we focus on, whether it's an hour race or a 3-hour race. So, there's no real, it was unusual to do a long race, then a short race. But in terms of preparation, it was pretty similar.
And also looking ahead to the rest of the season, especially in terms of the weather, obviously this weekend is probably more autumn weather than summer weather, really. And with the calendar sort of shifted towards the back end of the year, do you think if the car's suited to those conditions, do you think maybe you'll go well thanks to the later calendar?
I mean, probably not. Bentley traditionally is not great in the wet, which is why it was actually a surprise yesterday with the conditions that we did so well. But traditionally we're not that good in the wet. with this car. We need to do a lot of work to get it to where we want to be. So obviously, until the weather sort of really starts coming in, we're not gonna be able to develop those, that setup and develop the car where we want it to be for the rain. Silverstone in November is haunting me at the moment, just thinking about it. So I hope we can make some big steps forward in the wet. I feel like we're getting pretty close in the dry now. Donington suited the car much better. Brands should be another circuit that suits us quite well. Lots of medium speed corners out the back in the Grand Prix loop. Snetterton will be more tricky for us because of the traction zones, but then Silverstone again should be good for us. Lots of sweeping fast corners. So the only thing that could go against us is, like you say, the weather. So I'd like it to stay dry because I think that would be our best chance at the moment. But if it does rain, we're just going to get our heads down and really work on something to improve the situation. And it's not for the will of not that we're not going to try either. We made a pretty substantial change between race 1 and race 2 yesterday. The team really, the guys in the team really pulled out all the stops to make that happen. And they could have quite easily left it, and just accepted that the Bentley's maybe not very good in the wet. But they really put the effort in and made sure that we had the best possible chance, for race 2. And that's why I'm so happy just to repay them, after that, because our guys, we've had the same team now on our car for the last 3 years, and it's fantastic because everyone, it's a big family really. I think I told you before, it's a great rapport in the team, and it makes everything much better. We can get things done. There's no issues. We get things done, and then when we get the result, it's amazing. So it's a really special day.
Thanks for talking to us, Scott. Hopefully we'll see you at a track soon.
So after Oulton Park and Donington, we've now got Brands Hatch to look forward to on its traditional weekend, end of August. So at least that's kind of stayed in its usual spot. Don't know much about the entry list yet because it's not been released, but we can kind of take a guess. We certainly know that we'll be down with one McLaren will be missing. That'll be the Balf Motorsport one because Stuart Proctor and Joe Osborne, they're only doing selected rounds. I think their next one is Snetterton. And we may have a Aston Martin back in the frame with Beach Dean.
Yeah, it's been a bit weird seeing 4 races with absolutely no Aston Martins in GT3 so far. So no, it'd be nice to see Andrew Howard come back in the Beach Dean car. He's been missed really. He's sort of been a mainstay in the championship ever since he started racing a DBRS 9 all those years ago. I think 2009, 2010, I think, so roughly around there. And then ever since,
might be earlier than that.
Yeah, potentially even earlier than that. But yeah, he's been an ever present, and yeah, to see him not racing. It's been odd, really. So, yeah, no, it'd be nice to see Andrew back at Brands.
I think it's hard to make a prediction who's going to win as well because since 2015, 3 of the winners have been Aston Martins. So, are we going to put our head on the chopping block here and say Andrew Howard is going to win next weekend?
Yeah, I wouldn't put it past him. He's not raced since last year, so he'll certainly be keen to make a good impression again. But I think by the same token, reading back through past reports on Brands Hatch races, it seemed to be it's not really a tactical race, Brands Hatch. It seems to be the winner always seems to make a move early and makes it stick, really. I mean, last year, Johnny Adam and Graham Davidson, they didn't lead, but as soon as Ollie Wilkinson made a slight mistake, they got through and basically held on and just dominated it. It was the same last year, same the year before even, with Johnny again and Flick here. And then Rick and Seb Morris, as you mentioned, got Team Parker's last win before Donington at Brands Hatch 2017. And they were just absolutely ruthless in that race. They won by about 30 seconds, considering both of them were really ill at that race. Rick had a flare-up of Crohn's and Seb had food poisoning for that race. So they were really, really ill, but they still managed to dominate it. So I think whoever's going to win the race, I think you'll see it early doors that weekend.
Yeah.
What's the weather going to be? I think it's going to be dry. some clouds.
Yeah, I don't remember a wet Brands Hatch race for quite a while, actually, because obviously I suppose late August is one of the few nice weekends in Britain. We don't get many, but it always seems to fall on that weekend. So I think weather's not going to be an issue. I think it might be the opposite, actually. I think it might be the heat, potentially, could be an issue at Brands Hatch. I think the Grand Prix loop isn't always the best for overtaking. I think you have to be bold to overtake. And I think, as we saw last year with Phil Keane passing his teammate on the last lap up on the Grand Prix loop, I think it needs a bold overtaker. So I think if you're going to win it from outside the front row, I think you need to be bold with it.
I think there's also a chance that you will get a safety car at Brands Hatch as well. That seems to be a constant every year there.
Yeah, there's always a few sort of key places, aren't there, really? You sort of got someone goes a bit too hot into Paddock Hill and gets stuck in the gravel there. They either brake too late into Druids and get stuck in the gravel trap. Or it's somewhere like Hawthorne or Westfield on the Grand Prix loop where maybe it's a move that didn't come off. Maybe they're just trying to take a bit too much speed in, and again, it's another gravel trap, so they'll get stuck.
Yeah, I think so. But hopefully it should be another good entry. Like I say, we've not got visibility of the entry list yet, but we should be looking at a good 20-plus cars. So it should be a good weekend. So keep an eye on GT Report for all our social media updates. We'll be there, and we'll be reporting on that one. I think that's about it for this show now. I don't think there's anything else to talk about. We will probably be back fairly soon because we still have GT World Challenge to talk about, and I think there was some talk about discussing the Italian GT Championship. So if that floats your boat, then get on here because that's what we'll be discussing. But other than that, I think that's pretty much it for us now. Thank you very much, and see you again quite soon.